Hi again then guys, and welcome to another look back to the hugely popular and widely loved Project Gotham franchise, once again in particular to the newest game, at least for the moment, and we can keep hoping for a Project Gotham 5, Project Gotham 4. And this is not just one of my favourite cars in the game, it's one of my favourite cars in the real world as well. And it is my absolute favourite of all of the road homologated GT1 Le Mans cars. I love this more than the Porsche 911 GT1, the CLK GTR, even something like the Lotus Elise GT1. As beloved for me as that car is, I still like this one even more. Because, as I've mentioned before on the channel, Panoz is my favourite racing team, they're one of my favourite manufacturers, and I love every car that they've ever built. Literally, every car. This one is arguably the ultimate Panoz. Now from a racing perspective, it's not, because they have gone even faster with the LMP1 Roadster S. However, for road cars, nothing else even comes close, because the Esperante GTLMs and the Abruzzi, they're fast of course, but they're just not on the same level as this. Now this car is an absolute monster, and even though it debuted in the 90s due to regulations, of course they had to make a number of road-going variants available for customers, which is just inherently cool anyway, even if it was a bad car, they actually will still build you one, or at least the last time I checked their website, you could still spec up one of these. Now I'm not sure if that's still there, but last time I checked, it was around $650,000 to buy a brand new GTR-1 road car, and I tell you what, if I had 650 grand lying around, I'd buy this thing in a heartbeat, because it's an awesome car. Now the looks definitely aren't for everyone, it's a unique looking vehicle, that's for sure, and having front engine, or front mid-engine technically, Le Mans cars is one of the things that actually sets Panoz apart from the rest of the pack. The 911 is mid-engine, the CLK GTR is mid-engine, the Elise is mid-engine, the vast majority of them are mid-engine, whereas Panoz has almost always took this opposite approach of having a front mid-engine layout in front, of course, of the driver instead of behind. And even with their full-on LMP variant, which replaced this car, the aforementioned LMP1 Roadster S, that car kept the front mid-engine, and I like that. They stick to what they want to do, and they don't really care what the other teams are doing. And they've had success from that. That was a race-winning car. The Esperante, in racing form, was also a revolutionary car. In fact, although many people don't know this, a version of this car, in its racing form, nicknamed Sparky, was actually the first ever Le Mans hybrid, way before any team like Audi, or Porsche, or Peugeot, or Toyota had even attempted to do that. It wasn't a success, but they still did it first. That's pretty cool, especially for such a small team. And one of the great things about Panoz is that because they try to be so different, they are almost like the modern interpretation in some ways of teams like Chaparral from way back in the day. They have that pure focus on being totally different, but not just for the sake of it, but for the sake of innovation, and to really have their own slice of the market, if you want to look at it that way, both in road and racing form. And in the case of this car, that really shines through. Everything that they did with this car just works, especially as a road car. There are very few road cars that can keep up with this thing around a track, because it's basically the definition of a race car for the road. Now, as far as the specs which they give it in the game, this is one of the relatively rare occasions where I would actually agree with almost all of them. Because some of them initially sound maybe a little bit too low, or even a bit too generous in some cases for the car, but let's run through them and look at what they give it. First of all, they give it a 10 for acceleration. I definitely agree with that. This car's got over 600 horsepower, big V8 engine, it's lightweight. Yeah, it's got a 10 for acceleration for sure. As far as braking, they also give it a 10, and I'm very happy to say I definitely agree with that, because the brakes on this thing, as you can even see in the video, they have no trouble at all slowing this thing down from max speed to cornering speed, in some cases even hairpin friendly speeds, in no time at all. It's almost so good that you can decide when you want to brake, instead of preparing for the corner like you would in a normal car. Is that unrealistic? Yeah, slightly, to say the least, but still, it's a lot of fun. As far as grip, they again keep the streak alive with another 10, and I'm very happy to say that again, that is true. However, that's where the issue comes in, because they kind of contradict themselves, because the way I see it is, by definition, a car that has a 10 for grip should almost have a 1 or a 0 for drift. because you can't have both. A car is either supremely grippy or is a drifter. You cannot have both. The Nissan GTR, for instance, has amazing grip and can drift, which would seem to be a contradiction of what I said, but not really, because you wouldn't give the GTR a full 10. You'd give it a 9 at best to signify that indeed it can still drift. To me, by definition, giving something a 10 means that it cannot be any better than that. So by saying that it has a 10 for grip, how can it be a good drifter as well, and yet they do give it a 3 for drifting, which is a contradiction as far as I'm concerned, because it's not a drift car. If you pull the handbrake, then yeah, you can get the tail out, but you could do that with anything. You could do that with a big rig. That doesn't make it a good drift car. So, by definition, I don't think that it should have a 3, it should be a 2 at best. I would personally give it a 0 for drifting, maybe a 1, but whatever, it's forgivable, it's not a sackable offence or anything like that. And finally, for the top-end speed, this was one which I was uncomfortable with when I first saw it because of my love for the car, but at the end of the day, when you consider it, it does make sense. They give it a 6 for top-end speed, which sounds kind of underwhelming for a road-going Le Mans car with over 600 horsepower, and that's even lower than something like a Mercedes CLK DTM or a Cadillac 16. So, should it be that low? Well, yeah, it should. Unfortunately, well, actually not unfortunately, because Panoz deliberately did that. If you go on their website and read about the GTR-1 road car, they do specifically say that they gave it a short throw, short ratio gearbox so that you get up to a lower speed than some of its rivals, but you get there much more quickly, which gives it really strong acceleration, and it's great for track use. That definitely shines through on the game, because as you can see from the replay, you are topping out at about 185. The Cadillac, for instance, can do around 195-200, and that's got a 7, this car's got a 6. So, ultimately, although a 6 out of 10 doesn't sound that great for a car like this, it is accurate, because the top-end speed is deliberately not quite as strong. If Panoz offered it with an alternative gearbox, something with, say, longer ratios, there is no question that it could easily go over 200, probably around 205, maybe even 210, quite easily, given how aerodynamically efficient it is and how powerful it is. So it has potential, but of course that's not something which you can explore on Project Gotham 4. So overall, I have to say that I do actually agree with most of their opinions on the car, with the main standout being the drifting. It doesn't deserve a 3. As much as I love the car, it shouldn't be a 3. But it's an amazing car, definitely one of the best A-class vehicles in the game. So if you do go back to play the game, definitely check this one out. To be honest, you don't even need to be a Panoz fan to enjoy it. But that's it for this pick overall. Of course, I'll see you guys next time. And for now, as always, thanks for watching.